Level 10 Leaders is the leadership podcast for CEOs and senior leaders focused on scaling their business. I'm your host, Ryan Castle. Every episode delivers field-tested tactics, practical tools, and real stories from top founders. If you're obsessed with business growth, execution, and building a leadership team that performs without you in the room, this is your show. David Alsop, welcome along to the podcast. So great to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining.
Great to be here, Ryan. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, David. I've had a chance to review your book, and a lot of what you talk about is very, very aligned with also what we do at Level 10 Leaders. So I'm going to have to try to not be too much of a fanboy. I might have to ask you some like devil's advocate questions just to keep this interesting. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just going to be a cheerleader all day. But we'll see how we go.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I appreciate just you reaching out to me and getting to know what you're doing.
Okay. What we like to do, David, is just get our audience to know you a little bit. So we hit you with some fast fact questions. So first one up, are you a breakfast or dinner guy?
Breakfast. I love breakfast. It's the time that works out best for me, and it's the food I love most.
Okay. What did you have this morning?
Oh, I'm on a diet, so I had whole wheat toast, some cottage cheese, and
a bit
a
of protein?
protein drink. Yeah, so
there we go.
I'm doing the protein and some whole wheat.
Oh, good job. So you in a fitness focused phase right now?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done going up and down in life with just not being as healthy as I could be. And I lost 40 pounds and gained that weight back. And I'm just trying to get into a stable, long-term approach to everything I'm doing.
Nice. Good one. On holiday, David, would we find you doing something adventurous like bungee jumping, or are you more of a pool lounger and cocktail guy?
On a normal holiday, me and my wife are just hanging out, going on a walk, seeing the mountains, and just chilling. We like to read books. We like to watch shows. On a great one, I'm out kayaking on a river because that's my favorite thing to do, and we love to kayak.
Okay. And kayak style, is that like gentle down the river, or are you hitting the grade 5 rapids and flipping upside down and Eskimo rolls all over the place?
If it's my wife, we're on a lake and we're just sitting there loving it on the water in the outdoors. If it's me and my son, we're on a class 3. That's as high as I can go without like getting really scared of my skill set. But I love rivers. I love the rapids. I just don't go too high on the rapids.
Nice. And I see some art on the wall behind you depicting some rapids and a bit of river action. Is it close to your heart?
Yeah, Utah's close to my heart. So it's a depiction of just the red rock of Utah. And when we have plenty of water, which we need more of, it's flowing in a beautiful way. And so the red rock of Utah is just what I love.
Okay, good job. David, when you're learning, what's your learning style? Do you mentioned reading books? Do you also watch video, your podcast? How do you go about gaining knowledge?
Yeah, I'm more of a listener, so I do really well at listening and then letting that see where my mind goes. And then reading's my second option. But my mind is more visual, and so I just love to see the visual aspects and see where it can take my mind to think differently. And so I really look at it as chunk learning is my best learning, where it just causes me to think and go to the next thought and find the next thing to research and understand. And so listening really does that for me better than it does reading. But I do love to read secondary.
Okay, nice. And animals, cats or dogs?
Very small dogs. We avoided animals for a long time because they were all hairy in our homes growing up and pooping everywhere. But we got a small dog that's very tame, goes outside, well trained, and we love the small dog. My wife won't let me get a cat. I do like cats because they're so independent. You know, they can just eat for themselves, fend for themselves. And I do love that about them, but they're a little bit moody. So we landed in the middle on a small dog.
Okay. Cat size, but dog styles.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it.
That's what it is.
Okay. And what's your routine, David? Are you an early riser or a night owl?
I got to find my mojo more consistently, but I love waking up early. That's where my mind's most bright. I'm just most active and able. But lately I've been staying up too late that I don't wake up as early as I want to, but early mornings are my favorite.
Okay. And if you were watching some entertainment, what would it be? Would it be thriller, comedy, drama? What's your vibe?
I'm drama. I'm drama. I like to have just a good, mystery, a good drama, with a great story. That's what I love. I also just love war stories and history. And so if you can combine a little bit of drama with history, it's fascinating to me.
Okay. Hey, thanks for sharing those insights, David. Let's change gears and talk a little bit about leadership and HR and how we help people be the very best of themselves in their work environments. You've had a bit of a winding path, I would say, to get to your career. You're currently the leader of HR at Ultradent.
Yeah.
Can you take us on a bit of the journey of how you arrived in this zone?
Yeah. It's more of what I call the winding path. Late in life, I found out I have ADHD. I wish I would have known that when I was in grade school, high school, and college. But for me, that was a time in my life where I was just trying to find where I was comfortable. And so I got a degree in marriage, family, human development, thinking I would be a marriage, family, human therapist. And that just, my senior year, I got out of it and just said, I just got to get a job and get going and figure out where that takes me. And so I got a job in sales. And all along, I remember a class I took my senior year called organizational behavior. And it just clicked for me. And I thought, I got to figure out where that goes and who does that. And I thought it was HR. And so about 18 months into my career at Kraft Foods as a sales representative, I asked my boss, hey, what about that HR thing? I'd like to do that. And he reacted really like strongly to me, like you could be a great salesperson, but why do you want to do something crazy like that? And I didn't know everyone hated HR, and that was my first introduction to something's different about HR. But eventually, I had mentors that helped me get into it. I transitioned into HR, into Kraft Foods, and learned very quickly. I had great mentors in HR there, but in big companies, sometimes you get stuck in the mode of just making sure the workforce is controlled through policy, making sure you're staffing jobs because you have high turnover sometimes in a merger and acquisition environment. And it really wasn't that org behavior that I really loved. It wasn't doing a lot of that. And so I spent a lot of my career trying to figure out how do I perfect we call it just the compliance, get that to the floor so I can build the house of, organizational strategy that I thought it was supposed to be. And so when I finally got my first HR business partner job, all I knew is I didn't have a degree in HR. I knew the basics from some certifications that I got. But, the only thing I knew to do is go to my leaders and say, hey, I'm your new HR business partner. Help me understand your business strategy because I feel people are the most important impact on that business strategy that we can build strategies for to deliver those results that you're looking for. And for them, that was a new approach that they weren't used to from a more, I call it the indoctrinated education that we get in HR sometimes as we come with a plan. Here's the HR plan where I just came to them, what's your plan so I can align our plans together? And that really resonated with them. And so that's how my career started growing is leaders loved that partnership that I could provide. And I go out and research the strategies to help build with them in partnership towards the business results. And so, so my journey landing here at Ultradent was I went through one of those mergers and, it was time for me to say, I'm not moving to Chicago again. I'm ready to move back to the mountains that I love. And we took a package and we moved back to Utah and learned very quickly startup environments don't always like the big companies right away. And so I found myself back in manufacturing at Ultradent, which was, really growing, and they wanted to modernize their HR department. And that was just perfect for me that I wanted to take advantage of an opportunity like that. And so I've been here for 9 years and we have really worked hard to find the right talent, the right approaches, gone through the headaches of turning HR around. And it's resulted in one of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had, being able to have a great HR strategy for an organization that can really be, strategic towards the aims of the business outcomes the organization needs and help people be engaged as they do that. And it results in great outcomes for the business. And it's just a fun environment to be in when you're doing it that way. And so 20 years in, that's where I've landed, and I'm still trying to figure it out every day because HR is an up and down environment that you got to always work hard at it.
Love that. It's I love how you've ended up in the zone that you're in. Could you unpack a little more for us? You have a saying, business first, HR second, and I think
Mhm.
you've given us some insight to that, how you started even that very first business partner role by asking about the strategy for that team. When you got to Ultradent, can you unpack for us how you got your head around the strategy of what Ultradent was trying to do? And then what did you put in place to support that from a people perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, the when I got to Ultradent, it was still founder led, and the founder was really 45 years in trying to keep that vision alive of improving oral health globally. And people were the bedrock of everything. And so he just got the people part of it just great. And so when I talk about business first, HR second, what we mean by that is in the end, when you get it down to the whole heart of business, and I think we forget about this in HR and in general in business right now, the purpose of a business is to sell the most product of your purpose to this society or the community or the world. And that means you have to measure that through dollars. And so in the end, that's the purpose. And so as an HR person, if I can come in and understand what is our purpose, what is our mission, what are we trying to do, and how have we been successful doing that in the past? How do we build an organizational strategy that supports that? And I got to say this the right way because some people misunderstand it. How do you do that for the lowest cost possible while engaging people at the highest possible way? And that comes across to people that business first means we don't care about people. And we're trying to do that as cheap as possible. But no, we're trying to do that as appropriate as possible and watch ourselves so we don't spend too much or too little on the people strategy of an organization because too many organizations go out of business. Too many organizations go down in their results because they focus on the wrong things and they lose focus on what that end goal is to deliver results for the mission of the organization. And so with HR, if we can do that, I simplify that back to the best way you can do that is to understand that the core of human experience and human business is if an employee and many employees across an organization can be amazing partners to leaders. Leaders can be amazing leaders to teams and individuals to help them deliver highest results for their potential in an engaged way, in a partnership way, and then cross-functional teams can collaborate in a way that delivers the mission of an organization. It's about delivering and training and developing that towards the ends of the organization so people can all be on this unified page of results. And so I simplify it back to that. If we understand that our mission is up here and we're all trying to move in that same direction, how do we make everyone great partners to do that? And so that comes through learning and development. Comes through technology that is simple and fluid in how it delivers those connections across an organization. It's about the data that we provide that helps identify where the gaps in partnerships are to close. And it's about providing just the right benefits that we can analyze to make sure, is this the right benefit for our company? Is this the right strategy and total wellness proposition? Or are we going too far into the trends of the world that are going a little bit crazy? Because we have to come back to what do we need, not what is everyone else doing. And so, that's a little bit of a long-winded way of saying what we have landed on and how we deliver strategy starts at the business and it goes through partnership and cross-functional collaboration success to get to the right places. And then how do we build a support system around that to keep that purpose flowing?
Okay. Uh, David, what do you observe with someone would you consider that was a very good leader? What behaviors are you seeing them exhibit that make them such a good leader?
I think number one, the best leaders I see, they are humble to feedback. They're confident with feedback. They're partners with feedback. And they use feedback to help themselves stay in that humble state, but growing in an innovative way. And so I see those kind of leaders with that kind of humility. And our CEO does this so wonderfully here. In a room, they're facilitating the innovation of the minds in the room rather than being the one that is the one talking and innovating themselves to the room. We can't be the only ones. Founders often are that. Founders are very successful in inventing something and then they become the experts. But after the founder stage, CEOs that are best know that I have to develop and grow the mindset in the room to be inclusive, to be feedback oriented and to be growing together with the unity of minds that are diverse rather than the vacuum of minds that are exclusive. And so I start there. Like when there's leaders that lose themselves to that cause, they're very successful because they're not relying on themselves. They're facilitating the group whole that is leadership in general to grow everybody together.
And do you think that's a skill that can be learned?
I think it can. I think it can. I think there's some people, it's surprising the research around introverts. We have long held this belief, and we have a tendency as humans to see the ones that are most shiny and exuberant in their presentation as to be great leaders. And in the end, we find that they're not as inclusive, they're dominating. And then we go back and see these interesting introverts that are just facilitating groups together that are winning together. And so I think introverts have an easier time with humility because they've been beat up in the extroverted world that we're in for needing to be different than they are, when they should just develop who they are to be better and more expansive in their personality. And so I think it's easier for that. But that's not to say anybody with an extroverted personality can't do that. That's just to say all of us need to work on something to meet in the middle of our personality trends. And some of us are, easier in the middle. Some of us are extreme introverts, extreme extroverts, but we need to learn from each other to understand, why is an introvert successful in this? And why is an extrovert successful in this? Because I wasn't selling myself very well to get a job. So sometimes it took a long time for me to, get this job at Ultradent because I wasn't selling myself very well. And so I went through and got voice lessons. I got, presentation lessons that helped me to overcome my tendencies as an introvert so I could maximize my strengths as an introvert in my influence. And I've had a lot of mentorship around influence to do that, where that comes more naturally to someone that has a more extroverted personality. And so to answer your question, I think anybody can learn it, but if we have the humility, like I said, to understand that we have strengths that we can learn from all these different personalities and weaknesses to overcome, that's what helps us make that transition to be a great leader. I don't think anyone's born with the perfection. They have to develop into something better than they are anyway.
Yeah. And totally align with you there, David, around awareness of self is so critical, and then awareness of others. And, that comes right back down to communication. How do I communicate? Who is the person across the desk from me? What is their style? How could I communicate in a way that I think would be really effective for them, rather than saying the way I like to communicate is X, so I'm just going to talk at that person and that style. So that awareness piece of self and others is super critical, which is what you're talking to there. Here's a quick break. If you're a CEO or senior leader scaling and growing business, listen up. Here's the truth. Most companies don't have a strategy problem, they have an execution problem. So here's a quick win. Take 2 minutes to complete the Execution Strength Diagnostic. Get an instant report that shows you exactly where your execution is leaking. Take the diagnostic at level10.us/execution. That's level10.us/execution. It's free, it's fast, and it'll show you the real gap between your strategy and what's actually happening day to day. Now let's get back to the podcast. Hey, David, I want to come back to your insight around lowest cost. Because I think it does naturally become maybe an inflammatory statement that people are like, oh, you're just trying to get the cheapest people, etc. I'm sure there's a lot behind that. The first piece would be, as you said, we're in a commercial environment. We're trying to maximize the results of the business. We measure those predominantly financially, but there are other measures as well. When you're thinking about setting remuneration, how do you think about it at Ultradent? Do you do, there's a table stakes of level of we have to, and then we always try to be in the, second quartile above market? Or are you saying, or do you think more broadly about the whole experience for someone at Ultradent? Because I think we've all seen the research that you ask anyone and actually, pay tends to be about sixth or seventh most important for people in their experience, hey, there has to be a level that they can meet. They've got a lifestyle, etc., but it's often not the motivator. So how do you think about it at Ultradent? The dollars you put on the table at straight remuneration versus the other things that people can experience?
Yeah, we think about it, and we've really evolved our thinking about it when it comes to, HR people call it the employment value proposition. We call it the total wellness proposition, and we have just a few buckets to think about how we help people understand what total wellness is. It's about financial, and that's where pay, 401k, those kind of things fit. Physical wellness, we've got benefits and medical and dental and vision and those kind of things that fit in there.
I'm so
Environment,
glad you've got dental. That would
yeah,
have been that
got
would have been
dental.
odd if you
That's
didn't
who
have
we
dental.
are. That's easy for us with dental. And then you got environmental. Like, how do we build a cultural environment, like I talk about with leaders and employees that are partners, that they love to come together and work together and succeed together? That environment that matters. The sociality of the environment that we have is a part of the wellness. And then we have developmental wellness, because the most impactful part of pay is developing into higher levels over time rather than staying in a position that doesn't grow the pay over time. And then those, we think about it in that we put it into a pie and we give it to employees and we say we're investing in all these things. Now, when we get to this financial part of it where we have pay and 401k and those types of things, when it comes to pay, we understand, like, if we don't pay appropriately, we're not going to retain people. And so don't ever think that we're being cheap when it comes to that. But you have to be scientific enough to understand you need to target every position to make sure you know what is appropriate for that position when you create a position. And so we have a system, we have the technology now with pay data where we can target every single position and understand what's the range for that position. And in the midst of that, then we have every year a pay assessment that when you come in, we hire you and we pay you appropriately in that range. If you have less experience, less education, we want to take a risk on you and see where your potential takes you. And if we can develop that, we might have to start you lower in the range. But if you got experience, it's pretty common in that aspect. Pay people appropriately for the experience and the background that they come from. And then obviously we have to understand our budget we're playing with, to understand what can we afford? What can we do? And that changes every strategy for hiring that we do, because sometimes we need to hire for development and potential, and we find great talent that way that grows over time. And other times we need to hire an engineer that has all the credentials to do this job, and that's something we have to do, and we have to play within those ranges and budgets that we have. But we got to do that. But if we stop there and we just pay the wage and focus on that, I call that starting to just get into a bribery technique to retain people versus a total wellness strategy to grow people. And that's what we focus on.
And David, how do you assess the perceived value by your team members of those other buckets, the environmental and the physical? Do you try to get feedback from them on whether they value those things particularly? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have a very feedback focused organization now where we use our Pecan survey system where everyone gets a question every week or every other week right now. And over time, it builds up a portfolio of feedback where everyone can give us feedback on anything they want. We ask specific questions. Once a year, we take a survey that is very much specific. It's the Great Place to Work survey that asks about benefits. It asks about overall total wellness. And so that data combined with the importance we put on the one-on-one that managers and employees should have at least a month, if not every week, depending on their position. We collect feedback flow from that. And so we have a very feedback flowing organization that we're able to kind of pay attention and analyze all those different aspects of our total wellness strategy. And so as we do that, we're able to catch up and understand, and sometimes you have to be careful because employees will pay attention to the market and see that there's these trendy things that are happening. And we've got to pay attention to what's really needed, what's really desired, and how much of our organization is paying attention to that versus how much is believing in what we are talking about to succeed with their growth and their development. So, yeah.
I think Silicon Valley's got a lot to answer for around massages, fruit bowls, and ping pong tables.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you talk
No.
about trendy things, it's like, yeah, they've got a lot to answer for.
Yep. And they advertise it all the time. And in the end, the brain, if you study the brain science, people just want to be able to succeed in a job, know that they're doing a good job and grow in that job. And that goes a lot longer than any of the
Yeah,
stuff that we talk about
correct.
there.
Correct. And that feeling that they're part of a high performance team as well, I think
Hmm.
is really, really critical as well. We've seen that
Yeah.
did a lot of value. Just around the workplace survey that you talked about, I understand
Hmm.
Ultradent's actually done very well in that at an award level. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. For the last 5 years, we've been ranked in the top 10 of Fortune's best workplaces for large manufacturing and production. And the reality is, when you think about our scores, we have ranged between 86 to 92 the last 5 years on our EMPS scores, where the average that takes the survey, just takes the survey, is 57%.
Right.
And those are the companies that are trying hard for it. Gallup would say
Yeah.
it's around 34% that are engaged in that AM pass score. And so it's proving out that, if you do this right, you can have that majority of employees have that experience. And so that allows us to spend less time focusing on the problems. And we've only got 10% we've got to work on and figure out where they belong in this company, rather than 50% and 60%, like many companies are spending a lot of time
Sure.
in their HR strategies to deal with problems. We're growing the potential of the organization more than anything else right now.
Yeah. Love it. David, let's talk about the book that you've written, Making HR
Mhm.
Matter, What CEOs Want and How to Deliver It. What was the motivation to write it? Who was the audience? Who were you thinking of when you were writing the book?
Yeah, my co-author Ted Forbes and I, the reason we wrote it is we just felt there was a lot of academic information out there in books. There's a lot of niche parts of the profession in books. But each of us, when we got into HR, we would have loved to have a book that just let us be a fly on the wall to what the relevant CHROs were doing. And we didn't have that. And so for us, we had so many experiences changing HR strategy for organizations to be successful. Ted and I came together and just realized, hey, let's just start building a story, sharing experiences, and organizing it in a way that guides a path towards relevance towards the CEOs. And so the audience at the end of the day that we found was going to need this were students and HR professionals that are really struggling to understand how to become relevant, and they're stuck in corners. CEOs are part of the problem if they don't understand what relevant HR is. And so we need them to read it to understand how to expect it and expect the right things, rather than just leave HR in the corner and miss out on the value they could bring. And so between the CEOs and the executives are making HR decisions on who they want, and the HR professionals that need to deliver it, you've got to have both of them coming together to make it matter. And we truly believe, and we're getting so much feedback right now on people that are being inspired on, hey, if I can get my CEO to read this, or if I can get my HR person to read this, and we can come together, we could truly maximize what HR is doing in the future, versus there's just low expectations. There's myths that are holding us back, and we're trying to
Sure.
overcome that.
Okay. And so what are some of the core pillars of relevant HR?
Yeah, first it's having that humility to recognize what's not working. And so in the book, we talk about the myths of HR that are holding us back. For example, they're the personnel department. And so just go over there, administrate it, and push them into that corner and just fire people legally, have the policies that control people, make the benefits, and we'll call it good there. And they get stuck there. And you have to overcome a mindset like that. And so we go through, there's these mindsets that we have to overcome. And then we get into the mindsets that we need to have, and then the essentials of HR. And so as people go on that journey, they start to recognize with humility, oh, I've got that problem. I need to overcome that before I can become relevant. And then they start to see and build their plan for becoming essential and having the mindset to stay essential. And then it really ends up that I believe in losing yourself to the cause, losing yourself to the organization, because HR truly is, in my mind, when it's done right, the most noble opportunity, because humans are the most important part of the business. Human is what the world's all about if we do it right. And HR people need to lose themselves to the success of others rather than focusing inward on themselves. When they lose themselves to the success of their leaders, their employees, their teams, their CEOs, and they focus on that, that's where it all starts to form a magical equation of, oh, this isn't a, self-interested HR person. This is someone that's losing themselves to my success, to our
Sure.
success. And they're trying to help that. And so, and believe me, I get that, because right now I've got a book out there that I've got to come back and make people realize, no, this is trying to help other people, just to be clear, because it can come across that we're selling something that is self-interested, which it can be. But in the end, I'm still a CHRO trying to lose ourselves as a team to the cause of the future of this organization. And we've got to remember that. We've got to come back to that every time.
Yeah, it's such a good insight, and I think we've seen a mismatch between often, you ask a CEO, what's the most important part of your organization? They go, oh, the people, and then in the next breath, you ask them like, how much influence does your HR team? And if they're not well evolved and not well positioned, they are perceived to be the personnel department. And you're like, wow, it's just such a massive disconnect between you seeing your people as your most relevant and important resource, but the dedication of the team supporting them misaligned. So I
Yeah.
love what you're talking about in the book there. It's really great. When you were researching the book or when you were writing it, was there a particular moment or a case study or an example that like really stood out for you that you were like, wow, this really defines what we're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's when we talk about the convergence mindset. The convergence mindset for me has been the moments in my career where I realized this is so powerful because that's what it's all about. When we talk about the convergence mindset, it's understanding that on one side of an equation, you have individuals that are all diverse and different. On the other side of the equation, and it's just an XY matrix, you have the business that needs to deliver results, right? And we have to do that at the highest potential possibility. And leaders and employees have to partner across that divide. And when leaders are partnering with employees, listening to them on what they individually value and how to bring that in connection to the organization. And when employees are partnering with their leaders to understand what the organization values, you start to draw these lines of limits on what individuals want and what organizations need and can offer. And when we get to the greatest possible place, we've called that the ignition point where results actually occur because someone is engaged, they're enjoying their job, they're feeling immense motivation, and they're delivering maximum results for the organization. And when that is reached, and you reach that with more people, results just happen and occur because everyone is motivated towards the same end. And everywhere I've been where I've been able to get people to understand that vision of partnering across that divide, it changes the conversation of performance to care about someone's ignition point rather than it's all about me or it's all about you. And it clarifies what that organization needs and what an individual wants to be able to succeed in that. And sometimes we have to let people know our limits are here and we can't do what you want to do because that might fit somewhere else, but not here. And it starts to form the organization's culture and organization because you find a diverse audience that looks for what you're looking for and you can meet what they're looking for across that divide. And it becomes a convergence of individual satisfaction with organizational results that we can all deliver together.
Great. I'm sure we've got some listeners that are like, hey, this book sounds great. Where can I get it? Where can they get it?
Yeah, they can go to any major online retailer, but the main one is Amazon. Just go to Amazon, search Making HR Matter, or they can just go to makinghrmatter.com and it's got everywhere you can find to learn about it, to buy it. But we hope people take advantage of it because it's really about making HR matter. That's the title. And if we can help everyone do that, it's going to be a great career for a lot of HR people, but great results for a lot of companies.
Thanks, David. And we'll make sure we put the link to that in the show notes so people can access it nice and easily as well. What have you not achieved at Ultradent yet that you would like to?
It's a great question. We want to be known by consumers for having the greatest products for their mouth, the greatest products for oral health. When you go to a dentist, you should expect your dentist to have our products that they're working with. But when you use toothpaste, we hope people understand that there's a toothpaste out there that all of us have discovered that work here is the best toothpaste in the world, the best whitening products in the world, the best oral health products in the world. And so we haven't achieved full total market understanding out there. And that's our dream is if people can know what Ultradent's doing, they would run to the Amazon, they would run online and find wherever they can find our products because we have the best toothpaste in the world, and we've got other products across the portfolio that are trying to make oral health matter. And so that's our next stage is to be globally known.
Okay. What makes the toothpaste so good?
It's both a whitening toothpaste, but the ingredients in the toothpaste, when I started here 10 years ago, I just used the run-of-the-mill, whatever I could find at Walmart, great advertising. They got all the big companies doing it. I came here and I thought, whitening? I don't need to whiten, but I started using it and my oral health has changed because of it, because it's got such high quality ingredients for oral health and it's made by dentists for dentists. And so it's traditionally over the years sold through dentists because it's that high of quality and dentists need to, sell it to people. And we're bringing it to the consumer on Amazon right now because we just believe it's something that everyone should be looking at and understanding. It can help your oral health. And that's our whole purpose as a company, is to improve oral health. And so our authentic brand is that. And we're looking to disrupt the industry, both in the dentist's office, but also in the stores and in the online environment where people buy toothpaste, whitening products, and oral health products.
Okay, good pitch. I'm going to give it a try and see if it's any good.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, David, thank you for the conversation today. Some really great insights. Would certainly encourage our listeners to jump onto makinghrmatter.com and grab a copy of that book. I think I really resonate with your idea of business first, HR second, keeping the purpose and the mission of the business front and center, and then getting in behind and understanding how HR can contribute to making that happen. And really, the building out the environment you have with leadership teams, cross-functional integration. I love all that approach that you've built there. So thanks for joining us, David. Any closing thoughts you'd like to share before we wrap?
No, just it's all about leadership. I appreciate what your purpose is. If we can develop great leaders for our people and develop great people partnering with leaders, it comes back to helping to guide people towards success. And so I appreciate that opportunity to talk to you today, Ryan.
Thanks, David. Appreciate you joining us on the show. Thanks for tuning in to Level 10 Leaders. If today's episode hit home, here's one action to take right now. Do the execution strength diagnostic at level10.us/execution. That's level10.us/execution. It's fast, free, and will show you exactly where your execution is leaking. Hit subscribe, share this with one person who needs to break through the ceiling and crush their growth goals. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll show you exactly how to level up to level 10.